There was an event over at the Carter Center a little while ago that Bernie Sanders attended, and so did Jimmy Carter. And I thought this was, just so absolutely extraordinary that I wanted to share this clip of Jimmy Carter. First of all, let me just give credit where credit is due. Whose show is this?
Did an event.
It doesn't say whose show it is. I'm not sure. Well, we'll try to figure it out, and I'll get that information to you. But another talk show host, found this clip, and and then it was posted over Democratic Underground. That's really great. So, but in any case, I want to share it with you. This, in fact, let me set this up a little. France just held their secondary election for Parliament for the local offices, and this on March and on moving forward, right? This brand new, it's a year-old political party in France, took like 70% of the seats. Now, it was record low turnout, which means that Marine Le Pen's people just said, screw it, we lost. As well as pretty much everybody else's people. And Macron's people showed up. So what's going on in France? Well, Macron is a globalist. Macron is a neoliberal. And, as is Angela Merkel, as is basically the experiment of the European Union. And I am guessing, and I want to have more of a conversation with Naomi Klein about this in the third hour, that because the neoliberals not only don't address income inequality, but in fact, many of their policies lead to greater income inequality, that what we're seeing in France right now is a variation on what happened in the UK last week with the election, where Jeremy Corbyn almost flipped over Theresa May, and still may, we'll see, and the election here in November, where Donald Trump turned the entire political establishment on its head. And it's that after 35, 40 years, it started in 78 in the UK with Margaret Thatcher, it started in 81 here in the United States with Ronald Reagan, but after basically 35, 40 years of neoliberal policies, which have not been reversed, our taxes are still very low on the rich people, and they're still very low on rich people in the UK. And corporate regulation has been dialed back. The welfare state in the UK has been dialed back significantly, actually, under a series of conservative governments, and even under so-called New Labor, Tony Blair. And the same thing here in the United States. Remember, it was Bill Clinton who bragged that he had, quote, ended welfare as we know it, end quote. So neoliberalism in general is an economic system. And by the way, Russia adopted neoliberalism, when Yeltsin became president. And, as an economic slash political system. And now they're having their challenges with that. You've got protests in the streets right now, people out in the streets protesting political corruption in Russia. But I would submit to you that the kind of corruption that you see there, which is basically plutocrats running the country, and the kind of corruption that you see here, which is basically plutocrats running the country. This was the study that was done by Princeton that found, the Gage and Pinckney, I think were their names. Something like that. Yeah, anyhow, the study that found that if you're in the top 10%, odds are fairly high that what you want is going to get legislated. If you're in the top 5%, the top 1%, odds are quite high. If you're in the bottom 90%, the probability of what you want being passed through the legislature in the United States is equivalent to random noise. That's oligarchy. So anyhow, here's Jimmy Carter talking about this. Check this out.
And I think the reason was the disparity in income, which has been translated into the average person, good, decent, hardworking, middle-class people feeling that they are getting cheated by the government and by society. And they don't get the same element of health care. They don't get the same quality education. They don't get the same political rights, particularly after the stupid decision of the Supreme Court on Citizens United, where they said that it's an unlimited amount of money going into campaigns. But now they feel that even in politics, their choice of a candidate to be president or governor or congressman or whoever is not the same as a rich person's. And also, once that candidate gets in office, if he's successful, quite often the average person feels that they are repaying their contributions with legal bribery, and it's legal. And the justice system has also gone down. Long before we had this last election, when I left the White House, for instance, 1 out of 1,000 people were in prison. Now, 7 people out of 1,000 are in prison. 7 times as many people who are Americans are now in prison as they were just when I left the White House. So the feeling of an average person that I'll be treated fairly by the justice system is missing. So, you know, basic human rights, income, status in society, health care, education, participation in politics, justice, the things in which we used to have complete faith now has been distorted by the rich people getting richer and the poor people getting poorer. And when the rich people get a candidate in office, they can be sure that the tax laws and everything else are going to keep them getting richer and richer, but the average person suffers. So I think that dissatisfaction with the existing system of politics resulted in the outcome of the election in 2016 in the United States. People were willing just to take a chance and to abandon democracy and what we know about is basic principles and try something new, no matter what it was.
See, this is what's happening. I mean, literally all over the world, this is happening because this neoliberal order, what George Herbert Walker Bush called the New World Order, doesn't work. At least it doesn't work for anybody except a small number of countries that are basically still entirely and protectionistically oriented toward manufacturing, specifically Germany and China. They're coming to dominate the world. And, you know, it's working fine for them, but not for us, not for the French, not for, I mean, you know, just fill in the blanks, right? It's the Catalonian region of Catalonia in Spain, they're talking about an independence referendum, you know, the Barcelona area. Of course, that's been going on for a long time, but, you know, rumblings for a long time. But I would say that these are all part of the same thing, that people feel like they've been screwed. And they have been. You know, this whole idea that Thatcher and Reagan came in with, that if we cut taxes on rich people, if we open our borders to corporate behavior so that corporations can roam the world looking for the lowest wages and can roam the world looking for the lowest taxes and the lowest cost to do business, and continually move, you know, as Jack Welch, I think, the former chairman of GE or CEO of GE, who said if I could just, you know, put a factory in a barge and move it from country to country as the tax laws drop, I would do it. Words to that effect. That there's this sense that this doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And in fact, because of things like Citizens United, as Jimmy Carter correctly pointed out, now we've got this new group in Virginia that's pretty amazing. It's called Your Energy. And there's a piece about it over at Huffington Post right now, titled "Natural Gas Industry Brings a Fake Grassroots Group to Eastern Pipeline Fights," because there's all these, you know, pipeline fights going on. Funded by the American Gas Association, debuted as a co-sponsor of a conference at the Virginia Chamber of Commerce on May 24th. And the only indication that Your Energy is a PR company paid for by a major industry association appears on the privacy policy page. The group vows to stand up to, quote, anti-energy opponents, often out-of-state extremists that are spreading misinformation and fear to stop natural gas and energy infrastructure. Right. These same people, by the way, with the rollback of Dodd-Frank that happened last week, and yeah, we'll get to, you know, what Jeff Sessions is going to say tomorrow and what's, you know, crazy stuff is Trump doing today, but sometimes you just have to take a breath or a break for the first half hour. The the Dodd-Frank rollback that passed the House of Representatives last week, when the rest of the media was not paying attention because everybody was watching Comey, that Dodd-Frank rollback eliminates the ability of minority shareholders to submit shareholder resolutions. Now, this sounds really esoteric, but it's really important. There is this substantial group of people out there who buy positions in companies, and I'm not talking small positions, so multi-million-dollar positions in some cases, sometimes multi-$100,000 positions. A group of nuns that are doing it. There's a couple of large environmental organizations that are doing it. And then there's just some concerned rich people who are doing it. And they'll buy a bunch of stock in a company so that they have enough stock that they qualify to put a shareholder resolution in front of the board. And in 2016, there were roughly 1,000 of these things submitted, and of them, 175 had to do with climate change. And as Dino Grandani writes over in the Washington Post, it's only very recently, and it's the Energy 202, what the Dodd-Frank rollback could mean for energy companies. It's only very recently that climate-related solutions have had much success. Last week, a majority of ExxonMobil shareholders voted to instruct the company to disclose more information about the risk it faces from climate change regulation. Last month, similar resolutions succeeded at oil and gas producer Occidental Petroleum and electric utility PPL Corporation. Pension funds and other institutional investors seeking transparency oppose this new language. What a surprise. But the Business Roundtable's all in favor of it. Yeah, no more shareholder resolutions, right? No more shareholders holding companies accountable. We can't have that. I mean, this country's only for the rich people, right? It's for the billionaires. We'll be back.